Hey gang, today we're going to talk about random numbers. How do we find random numbers? Why is it important to be able to find random numbers? So what you're looking at right now is a project that I did with one of my past classes where students were given the lyrics of a song and they had to pick 5 words from that song, just any 5 words, and then find the average of their 5 words. And you can see this bottom dot plot here is the one that shows that first case when the students were able to pick their own answers or their own words, find the average of those 5 words, and you can see what their results were. Then I actually had each of the words within the song numbered, and we selected 5 random numbers. Each person selected 5 random numbers, used those random numbers to find the word that was associated with those numbers, and then calculated the mean, the average, of those 5 words. And you can see that up above here. So I've labeled that one as random. And you can see a couple of things here. One, when we did the random picking of words, we got a mean of 3.45 compared to a mean down here of 4.66. Also, our standard deviation, this S value, when we did it randomly, was 0.59. When we picked, it was 0.84. So that tells us that our data is more spread out when we picked our own words, and it was closer together when we pick these random words. Also, the actual mean, the actual average length of a word in this song was about 3.6, which is this red line here. So you can see that when we randomly picked the words, the mean that we got was closer to the actual average mean length of a word in this song, and the data was less spread out. Our results were less spread out. You can also see this on the next slide. This is the same thing, just with a different class. They're flipped here, so the random one is on the bottom this time. Again, closer to 3.6 and less spread out, a smaller standard deviation than the top one here, where we got much larger words on average, and our results were much more spread out. We tend to our eyes focus on those big words. Even if we're thinking about picking random words, we may skip over the A's and the thes and other shorter words. So we really want to be able to choose things randomly if we want to get an accurate depiction of what our population might be like. And so that's where we're going with this. Just a little refresher on a couple of things here. Population and sample. So again, population is the entire group of individuals that we want information about, and a sample is a subset of individuals from the population. Okay. When we talk about our parameters, remember we talked about parameters. For a population, the parameters we use are mu, which is the average, pronounced kind of like this, mu, and sigma. This is the small Greek letter sigma, and we use that for standard deviation. That's when we're talking about the population, so those are parameters. When we talk about the sample, we're talking about statistics. Okay? So statistics, we use x bar for the mean. This is pronounced x bar. And we use S for the standard deviation. That way people know if they see mu and sigma, they know you've gotten your information from the entire population. And if they see x bar and S, they know you've gotten it from a sample. Okay. So a couple of things that I want to look at here. Voluntary response sample. So we talked about bias with wording of questions. We can also have bias with sampling. So one thing here is voluntary response, and that's when people choose to be in a sample. Okay. So maybe you ask people to call into a radio show, and that's going to be your poll. Or you ask them to click on a link on your website, and that's going to be your poll. Well, certain people are choosing to be in that sample, and people that choose to be part of a sample may have different opinions than the people who aren't choosing to be part of a sample. Maybe they have more time, free time. So you have to consider the bias that might come in with a voluntary response sample. We also have a convenience sample, and that's when you sample individuals that are easy to reach. So maybe you're going to do a poll, and so you go to the grocery store and stand outside the grocery store at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday, okay? And you poll the people coming out. Well, those people that are shopping at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday may be very different than the people that are shopping at 6 o'clock at night on a Saturday, or 8 in the morning on a Sunday. Okay? So by not selecting a random sampling of people, you're maybe not getting information about the entire population that you're interested in. And so your sample might be biased. That sample of people from 1 o'clock on Wednesday may tell us information about people that shop during the middle of the day on a weekday, okay? But probably not a good representation of all people within our city, for example. Okay? So how do we get that? How do we get a good representation of our population? Well, the way we do that is we get a simple random sample, and we'll often abbreviate that with SRS. Okay? So what a simple random sample does is it makes every group equally likely of getting picked. Okay? For example, some people may say, you know what, we're going to survey every fifth person that walks into school, and that's going to be random because we can't control who's coming in when. Well, that's not a simple random survey. For one reason, every group is not equally likely to be surveyed. Okay? If you come in with friends or siblings to school, there's no way that you could both be part of the sample because we're sampling every fifth person. So with a simple random sample, we want every possible group to have the same chance of being chosen. Okay? So to do this, we first label our individuals. They could be people, but we could be sampling other things too. We could be sampling machine parts, for example. So we label every individual. Then we select a random numbers. We select random numbers, however many we want. Maybe we want 30 random numbers. So we select 30 random numbers. And then our third step is we select the people or the individuals that are assigned to those 30 numbers. So I'm going to give you a little example of how we can get random numbers. So on the website here, just on Google, if we type in random number generator, this pops up, and we could type in, we want a random number from 1 to 100, generate, and there it is, 67. We can get another one, 89. You can keep doing that. They've got other random things here as well, but that's an easy random number generator. We could also go to this website, random.org. On here they even tell you that a lot of machines like computers aren't completely random. And to be even more random, random.org uses the randomness of atmospheric noise, here it says, which is typically better than pseudo-random number algorithms that computers might use. So here again, 1 to 100 on the right side. If we click generate, it'll give us 96 for a random number. So that's another possibility. I prefer to use spreadsheets. So on a spreadsheet, we can use a formula here, equals rand, and now you'll see a random number between 0 and 1. That might be helpful in some cases. Most of the time, if we're trying to collect a random sample, what we're probably going to want here is this rand between. So let's say I have 100 people. My low is 1. My high is 100. So I just type in 1, 100. I hit enter, and it gives me a random number of 4. If I push the delete button, it gives me a different random number, 22. Push it again, 35. Just make sure you don't delete your formula. If I want more than one random number, I can just click on that cell and click the bottom right corner and drag it down, and now I've got a bunch of random numbers from 1 to 100. Okay. So what we might want to do is maybe we've got a whole bunch of people here. We've got 200 people listed here. So I just went online and I took the 200 most popular baby names of 2018 from Wisconsin. So we've got those 200 people here. I've labeled them 1 to 200. So that was our first step, was to label. our second step then is to select random numbers. So over here, I'm going to type in equals rand between 1, 200, because I have 200 names, and hit enter. And you see a name popped up. I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to drag that down, and maybe I want 15 names. I'm going to drag that down to 19, just in case I get any repeats up here. Okay, because I wouldn't want to repeat the same person twice in my sample. So that's the second step, is to select the random numbers that we want. The third step is to select the people or individuals that are associated with those numbers. And that's what I've done over here. And you don't need to worry about the formula up here. But basically what I've done is I've said, hey, take a look at 149 over on the left side in this table of names. And whatever 149 is, tell me whose name that is. And so 149 was Chloe. 13 was James. 126 was Natalie. So I would just take the first 15 people on my list, as long as I don't have any repeats. And those might be the 15 people that I choose to give my survey to. Okay. That way it's a truly random sample, and I know that I'm not introducing any particular bias into my survey results. Okay. If you decided you needed another sample, again, off to the side here, you could just click delete, and it'll come up with new random numbers and new names for you to choose. Okay. So that's how we can use random numbers to select a sample, and how we can use spreadsheets or websites to calculate different random numbers.